I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Happy anniversary, Kiki.
Happy anniversary, Tuesday. You know, we have been doing this podcast now for 6 years. And people have asked us, what is our secret to a long and happy podcast? And I tell them that our secret really is very simple. Live in separate states from one another.
Live half the country away from each other, pretty much.
Yep, it will keep any form of relationship that you may be in very, very docile. Any podcast, any friendship, any other relationship you might have with a person, they will be very, very easy to live with if you never have to see them in person and only talk to them once a week via audio.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I asked you, hey, you want to do a podcast? And you said, yeah, I want to do a podcast. And yeah, here we are still doing it. I'm just as surprised as you are that we're still doing this podcast.
They said it wouldn't last, but we proved them wrong.
I mean, as long as we're still having fun doing this, we're going to keep doing it. For our 6-year anniversary podcast, we've chosen a film that we both grew up on, came out at a very early point in our childhood, single digits. Probably was too young to be watching this movie, but we watched it anyway. Howard the Duck, the George Lucas produced Marvel movie, and this is the very first Marvel theatrical movie. There was some TV stuff. I mean, obviously there was the Incredible Hulk TV show, and there was a short-lived Spider-Man TV show, and the cartoons and whatnot. But in terms of theatrically released feature films, Howard the Duck is the very first. And that is very interesting. I'm just, of all the Marvel superheroes that are out there, Howard the Duck would not be what most people would consider that's the first one that made it all the way to a theatrical release.
Yeah, and before we get any further, I do want to say that you probably saw this movie much earlier than I did. It was released when we were like 5, but I wasn't watching it. I didn't actually get to see this movie until I was in my teens. It wasn't technically the very first Marvel-owned thing put in a theater. There were a series of Captain America serialized short film put out by, I think it was done by Republic. Someone may end up correcting me on that, but I think it was Republic Studios that had the rights to that. I studied them in college. How's that for a weird flex, right? While you were studying the Blade, I was studying Captain America shorts in college. But yeah, back when they weren't even Marvel. They were still Timely, I think, when those serials were made. But, back in the days of, like, old Flash Gordon serials and stuff like that. But it was, a wartime serial or something, I think, because it was, like, back during the 40s. So, it wasn't It was theatrically released, but it wasn't a theatrical feature film. So this is technically the first theatrically released feature film, which is so weird. If I remember correctly, I think everybody involved in the making of Howard the Duck wanted it to be an animated film, and I think it was George Lucas's influence that ended up making it a live action.
We were already past, Fritz the Cat and heavy metal and that. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But this is a movie that George Lucas has been thinking of making pretty much since American Graffiti. He was a fan of the comic. He really wanted to make this movie happen. And in a post Star Wars world where he already has the ability to create these characters as walking, talking, real world creatures, I would assume that he would want to say, okay, let's just make this duck a real life creature. And ILM did a really good job on the suit for the Howard character, especially the puppetry, because it's very similar to what the Henson Company would use for the first Ninja Turtles movie. It's the same, uh, more or less, technology in terms of the puppeting of the head and the suit that the little person wears.
Yeah, the early wearable animatronics that they used. This is 1986. So this is after we have finished with, the original Star Wars trilogy. Everyone, including George Lucas at the time, thinks Star Wars is done. They have done all of the animatronics that were used in those films to create the aliens. We've had the Jabba the Hutt suits and, you know, all of Max Rebo and his band and all that, the first trilogy. And those were some great puppets and animatronics for their time. ILM has upped its game a little bit after that. Uh, they've partnered with Henson on a couple of projects to get the puppeteering end of it a little bit in a couple of projects by now. And they are kind of rocking and rolling on that end. Disney really had the robotic animatronics down for park usage in the theme parks, but as far as stuff you could put on an actor and have on a film set, they were lagging behind Lucasfilm and ILM with the help of Henson, because they hadn't joined forces yet. But I do want to say one thing about the special effects in this, because this was meant, when they decided it was not going to be animated and was in fact going to be live action, and a live action special effects vehicle for ILM, that was like really going to be their focus. Like, look at this. ILM has come so far in the couple of years since the last Star Wars movie. And I want to say that on the puppeteering end and the animatronic end, boy, were they right. This movie today, on the puppeteering and animatronic end, still looks great. I mean, we've come very far since then. You look at puppeteering and animatronic work right now, we've just blown past this by leaps and bounds. If you look at any other special effect that is not 100% practical done on set on that day, this movie looks like absolute crap.
Especially a lot of the Dark Overlord's powers. I don't know about you, but the version that I saw looks like it was digitally upgraded in some capacity. Like there was some sort of Blu-ray release, I believe, not too long ago that this is the upgraded from that. So a lot of these special effects from the 80s, they don't look good in the upgraded format. Um, like a lot of that comes from the Dark Overlord's powers, his eye beams and what.
Yeah, we are discussing it because as streaming often does, when we put this on the list, thinking this would be great to do for our anniversary show, it was streaming, and then it was not, and we both had to go out and find people to borrow it from. A friend of mine had a Blu-ray edition copy that I was able to get a hold of uh, to look at, and yeah, so that was, mine was kind of a remastered, Blu-ray thing. Yeah, even with that, it just, the special effects thing that was, early computer effects, early digital, anything in that realm, anything that was green screened, anything that was, like I said, if it was not 100% practical, done on a physical studio set on the day, anything done in post production just looks absolute garbage by this point. Really dropped the ball. I don't know kind of how it hit in the 80s because by the time I saw it, it would have been the late 90s anyway, and it was already kind of dated. Puppetry and animation work still looks pretty good. I mean, it's a little dated because you can tell, you know, but
Some of the stop motion with the Dark Overlord at the end of the movie, the animation is very fluid, but you could still the outlines of the blue screen to mat him into that shot is very obvious.
yeah, a lot of obvious matte lines. Did not, the compositing shots did not really hold up over the years. And we've talked a lot about movies where it has held up over the years. So these are not like de facto things that are going to happen as your movie ages. So not really sure what went wrong here. This wasn't the highest budget movie, but I do think that it was done really, really fast. So I think they got sloppy in a lot of this stuff.
I mean, we've talked about Marvel and how they handle the movie rights for their films. It probably was a situation where, like, okay, we're about to lose the rights. We got to make this movie happen now or never.
I don't know as much about the history of this film as I have for a lot of the ones we've done, except that when everybody talks about this movie, it's always, oh, the horribly fraught production of Howard the Duck. It seems like everybody uh, who talks about this movie talks about how like badly the production went. So,
So, this is the part where we talk about the cast.
good points
So,
and bad points here.
I wanna do this first. Let's rip the Band-Aid off of this. One of the major characters, Dr. Jennings, played by Jeffrey Jones. Jeffrey Jones, I mean, I can name two movies and you already know who I'm talking about. He is the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He is Lydia's dad in Beetlejuice. You know who he is. He is that guy.
Yeah, we
And
deal with a lot of 80s movies. He's going to keep coming up. Let's just let's just deal with that already, okay?
All right. So in 2002, Jeffrey Jones, yeah, he was caught in possession of inappropriate pictures involving children.
Yeah, let's just stop there. He got caught with stuff he shouldn't have had. You can shoot him out of a cannon into the sun for all we care. That is the last we're going to say about him. We will talk about his character. That's the last we're going to say about him.
Yeah. Also, Ed Gale, who is the in-suit performer for Howard the Duck. Same, but his happened in 2023, and he would be under investigation for that up until his passing earlier this year. And that is all we are going to be saying about those two actors.
Yeah, they were in this movie, and other than that, we do not care about either of them as people or performers. They did a job. Okay. So, back to people in this movie who are not total pieces of crap, as far as we know. If you like this movie, you like this movie because Leo Thompson was in this movie.
Yeah, this is 1 year after she did Back to the Future.
And she is only in this movie because she was in Back to the Future, apparently.
It's led to a lot of funny memes over the last few years, especially a meme of Marty McFly coming home at the end of the movie and seeing her mother in bed with a duck. Marty, I can explain.
Yeah. This also leads to one of the greatest things in the world, which is that Leah Thompson is actually for real in the Marvel universe. Not the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but in the Marvel universe. In the comics, there is now a Howard the Duck storyline where, if you don't follow the comics, Howard is currently primarily a private detective. That is his current job in the Marvel universe. And the actress, Leah Thompson, shows up one day on his doorstep and is like, I would like to hire you because I keep having horrible blackout moments and headaches and nightmares about a duck that I am kissing, and he looks a lot like you, and I want to know why. And that leads to an entire storyline that I will not spoil, but it is actually really funny and interesting and neat.
I want to flip on that because that extends into the podcast world. Few years back, Marvel did an official podcast, Squirrel Girl, the Unbeatable Radio Show. Yes, Squirrel Girl had her own podcast. Malia Vantrub, who has done the voice of Squirrel Girl in pretty much any cartoon and video game for the last 10 years. And they gave her a podcast in character as Squirrel Girl. And one of the guests she had on the podcast was Leah Thompson. And Leah Thompson was talking about the in-universe, this movie exists. And it's a Howard the Duck biopic that she started.
Yeah, and and like I really don't want to get into, because I really want people to go look up the comics, because they really are fun.
I say, after you read the comic, find the Squirrel Girl podcast and listen to the episode with Leah Thompson on it. It all connects.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, to try, to read, okay, why is this going on, and why, so it was really fascinating. The in the comics, I'm just going to say that in the comics recently, as in, within the last, 15 years or so, Howard the Duck has had some really awesome adventures. He has teamed up with one of my favorite characters, Gwenpool. He has started living next door to She-Hulk. He has teamed up with Squirrel Girl. There has been some really, really great comic things, as well as in the MCU, of course. Now he's voiced by Seth Green. So he's
Yeah, and
done
yeah,
in
and
live action and in animation.
Seth Green's Howard really came into the forefront in the What If series.
Yeah, which if you have not watched that What If series and what happens to Howard and another character, let's just say, that's some good stuff. Um
Howard got game.
Howard got game. I gotta say, I'm gonna talk about this because let's talk about the actor who does the voice for Howard.
Chip
Um,
Zine.
yeah, Chip
Chip
Zine.
Zine. Chip Zine, his claim to fame is in the Broadway production, the original production of Into the Woods. He was the original Baker. So that connects to an episode we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he has not only played the Baker, but he went back just a few years ago. I don't know, and played the mysterious man who is the baker's father, uh,
Full circle.
as well. So yeah, he's gone back to that. He's also played Thénardier in Les Mis, and lots of other musical parts of note. But yeah, it's kind of weird that I basically really only know him for being the voice of Howard the Duck. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. An entire career on the stage, and everyone, and just know him as, he voiced a duck in the movie.
Like, I mean, like we're both such huge musical fans, and you can tell us like, oh, he originated the role of Baker and Into the Woods and stuff, and we're like, Yeah, okay. We assume someone did that, like, but it doesn't really hit for us, like, to our core as going like, yeah, and he's also the guy that voiced Howard the Duck for the crappy George Lucas movie. And then we're like, oh yeah, no, we've seen that dozens of times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we grew up with this movie and we've both seen it countless times. You play that Howard the Duck song, we will start dancing and singing along. But I guarantee you, when I read a Howard the Duck comic these days, it's gonna be Seth Green's voice in my head. Cause no offense to Chip Zine, who is fine as Howard in this film, but Seth Green just nails it in a way that Chip never did, and I'm so sorry to Chip for that. But like,
I think with Chip's version of Howard, it's more of they try to make him more sympathetic, more caring, more relatable. And with Seth Green, he's got that New York accent. Hey, I'm walking here, and just kind of being more of an a hole, but taking especially in the What Is series, taking that kind of attitude and making it a character you want to care about.
yeah, I mean, I really care about Howard, kind of no matter who's portraying him, because I think he's just a weirdly relatable character. But I think that, okay, this is not a spoiler because everybody knows that this movie doesn't work. Like, it famously doesn't work. This movie is such a famous goose egg of a movie. It's a famous duck egg of a movie, okay? One of the biggest bombs in Hollywood history. And I'm not going to defend it on the level of being a good movie. Will I sit down? Will I watch it? Will I enjoy parts of it? Yes, okay? And you will understand better why when I get to kind of, the summation at the end. But the problem with it is I think, and we're gonna tease that apart as we go through it, the people who made this movie just didn't understand why this movie works. I mean, why the comic works, like why the character works.
Which is really funny considering this was a George Lucas passion project. He was a fan of the comics. He's wanted to make this movie since he made American Graffiti. He even got the people he worked with on American Graffiti to help write the script and direct the movie. Willard Huyck, is that how you pronounce his name? Huyck? I'm going with Huyck because it's funny and goofy and stuff. Willard Huyck worked with him on American Graffiti, who helped him write the script for this movie and directed this movie. So, like I said, this is a George Lucas passion project. And it is interesting how he says he was a fan of this comic, he found it hilariously funny, and kind of misses the ball on what made this character so interesting.
Yeah, the problem I think with the way that this had is, okay, there were two primary screenwriters on here, okay? There's the Willard Huyck who directed it and co-wrote it. But then the other writer is a woman who was the kind of co-writer and wife of Willard Huyck, okay, who worked on all the project. And she's the one that kind of said the stuff about disagreeing with even the creator of the character about what the character should represent and what was good about the character. And her name is Gloria Katz. And the thing is that Howard the Duck was created by a guy named Steve Gerber. And he created Howard the Duck, and then he worked on like Man Thing and some of the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, and okay. So that's his kind of type of thing when he worked for Marvel. And so that's why Howard the Duck kind of fits in with those type of Marvel characters. And when people would ask him, like, okay, why does Howard the Duck work in Marvel Comics? He would say, like, well, Howard's there to comment on, like, what a weird kind of existential nightmare Marvel would be as a universe to live in.
And he's not the
And
only character that does that. He's not the first. Again, we've talked about it. Deadpool, She-Hulk. Probably why he lives next to She-Hulk.
yeah, I mean, but She-Hulk is like half the time She-Hulk is just like a Hulk, you know? We've talked about that before. Like half the time she's just a superhero that lives in Marvel and does the superhero thing. And then occasionally she has these moments of like meta insight where she'll just break the fourth wall. And, same thing with Deadpool, same thing with, But Howard the Duck is kind of just supposed to be living that existential meta existence kind of all the time, but then is being dragged along through an existence as a Marvel character that he's not supposed to be living. Like, I think we're kind of supposed to get that, like, even though we've seen stuff that takes place on Duck World and stuff, we're supposed to maybe kind of get the feeling that, like, Duck World is not really compatible with Marvel, maybe, in that sense, you know? And so that him being ripped away from there and transported into the Marvel Earth is a, like, just the most insane continuing waking nightmare for him, because everything he sees is always going to be off.
All of these supervillains attacking the city every single month. And it's like, where are all these people coming from? We're getting aliens, we're getting superpower bank robbers and all these things. And this is normal in this world.
Like, the Hulk just swung through here, followed by a guy with a levitating cloak doing magic. And you are all okay with that. That's just a Thursday for you. That's Thursday for you. You're just getting coffee right now.
There is a ruler of a sovereign nation with a metal mask on threatening the
Yeah.
city. Where is the president?
It's like, this is a world in which the UN has to deal with just, not only is the leader of another country threatening war, the leader of another country is threatening war on a cosmic scale. You know, like, and Howard's like, yes, I realize I am a talking duck and you don't generally have those here, but at the same time, what the hell is wrong with you people? Like, snap out of it. This should not be a thing you just are used to. And
Yeah.
so that's the joke of the comic, is that Howard is the one creature in all of this that's kind of never fully sucked into the conceit of the universe. And he's always just got, like, one little webbed toe sticking on the outside going, like, but at the same time, like, I realize that we have to save the world, or, you know, stop the bad guy or whatever, but at the same time, please tell me everybody else is finding this as absolutely bonkers as every, like, as you should. Right? You know that this should not be your life. Correct? Okay. All right. As long as we're on the same page here. And, like, the creator apparently did base it off of a real friend of his who was kind of just that guy. Like, no matter whatever situation they got into, he'd be that guy that'd be like, I realize that we do have to put out the house fire, but at the same time, why is the house always on fire? And you realize that we should not be okay with the fact that the house is always on fire. You know, like, which I think maybe was a difficult thing to explain to some people in the early 80s. Like, I think maybe it's why people like Gloria Katz didn't really get it, because she kept going, like, you know, like, okay, yeah, but it's a talking duck. Like, okay, yeah, you can make duck puns about it, but, like, why do you have to call it existential? Like, what's existential about a duck? You know? It's like, because apparently her quote was, it's a film about a duck from outer space. It's not supposed to be an existential experience. It's supposed to be fun. But, like, Howard, as a comic book character, was supposed to be serious, but the joke of it was supposed to be, like, that the world is insane, not that Howard is the butt of the show. Like, he, you know?
It's a literal fish out of water story, or duck out of water story. He is literally taken from his world into our world, and he finds how we handle our regular world to be insane.
Which is kind of, yeah. And the thing is, I think Howard the Duck as a character and as a concept makes more sense to us now as humans, because Howard the Duck is really just the guy that would suddenly pop up in that meme cartoon with the dog sitting in the burning house, being like, this is fine. This is fine. And just being like, okay, but why are we fine with this? Except it's the entire world. Yeah. And I think the more that our own world is devolving into the constant dumpster fire that it is devolving into, Howard the Duck makes more and more sense to more and more people as a character, because I think more and more of us feel like Howard the Duck. It feels like we were in another world, and one day we woke up and we just looked around and we started going like, wait a minute. We were in a world that makes sense, and now today everything is just slightly askew.
And everyone's okay with it. It's like at least once a day, I come across a post on social media that says, this is not normal. Why is everyone acting like this is normal? And that's Howard the Duck. Like, he looks at the world and says, this is not normal. Why is everyone acting like this is normal?
Yeah, so that should be the movie. And instead, the movie is, wouldn't it be funny if a talking duck told you he couldn't swim? Wouldn't it be funny if a talking duck told you he was afraid of flying? Wouldn't it be funny if a duck told you that he didn't want to eat chicken eggs because that would make him a cannibal? Like, person who wrote that joke, have you ever met a duck? Because I have met a lot of ducks, and I have watched them MFers eat actual chicken. Not eggs, like actual chicken meat.
I've seen chickens eat chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, no, chickens will actually eat a live chicken. Chickens are horrible creatures. But no, you can feed a duck like cooked chicken. They do not care.
The only joke they don't do in this movie is bread. That is literally the only duck joke they don't do in this movie.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness, I could have a bread sandwich right now. Like, that would be a Howard the Duck film joke, and for some reason they stay away from it. But he does drink a lot of beer, which is just like liquid bread, so I guess that maybe that counts.
Maybe.
The one thing I did want to say about the cast, and I got kind of slightly off track there, was this is Tim Robbins' first movie.
Tim Robbins as Phil, or Philsby, as Howard calls him.
Yeah.
The person that Beverly thinks is a scientist, but he's just an assistant that works at a museum.
Well, he does tell her that he works in the lab, and so that makes her think that he's, a scientist and not the janitor at the lab.
And I do like that they as quickly as they can eliminate Phil as a love interest for Beverly because he's dating another girl in the band. And that's how she knows him.
Yeah.
In any other movie, the two humans would be the love interest. But it's one of the few comic accuracies in this is that the relationship is between Howard and Beverly. Speaking of Beverly, in this movie, Beverly is a musician, the front of her own band, Cherry Bomb.
Cherry Bomb.
I bring that up for two reasons, because number one, Leah Thompson does all of her own singing in this movie, which, especially for a movie in the 1980s or a movie in general, you don't often get the actress or actor doing the singing unless it's a musical. And even then, there are sometimes actors are dubbed over. So having Leah Thompson do her own singing in the movie is it's nice. She can actually, she has some pipes on her.
Well, the thing is that they had her do the singing, but they told her we might dub you over. They were waiting to see like how it came out. She knew that it was not guaranteed that her voice would stay in the movie, but she gave it her all, and good for her.
And the second thing I want to mention is that the songs in the movie, all of them, written by Thomas Dolby. He's blinding us with his science in this movie, which I actually found like behind the scenes stuff on YouTube, looking for doing some research on this movie, and it's like Thomas Dolby in the recording studio with Leah Thompson and the other actors playing the girl band, and
one of whom
some of
is
the
Holly Robinson Peete.
yeah, I was going to mention that Holly Robinson Peete plays Casey. Also, the other member of the group, Liz Segal, the younger sister of Katie Segal.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten that was her.
And Dominique Devalos wraps up Cherry Bomb as Cal. She is doing the backup singing for Leah Thompson in all of the songs.
Except for Leah Thompson, all of the other members of Cherry Bomb were specifically handpicked by Thomas Dolby.
Yep. So it's definitely 80s coded with, a big star from the 80s and Thomas Dolby doing the songs. And a lot of the songs are bangers. We talked about the Howard the Duck song, but there's a couple other ones that are pretty good.
Yeah, that one, I forget the name of it, but the one that they actually play right as Howard and Beverly are meeting after he saves her from the, punk guys that jump her right outside the club. That one's actually like, it's a little too on the beat, but it really is kind of a sweet song about like two friends meeting for the first time, and like having a lot in common. It's like it's just really just kind of a let's narrate what's going on in the movie at this moment kind of song, but it's really cute.
And I do like how they telegraph that, because right at the beginning of the movie, we see Howard going into his apartment on Duck World, and there is a poster of his band when he was younger, Howard and the Heartbreakers. He mentions that he half wrote a song that he never finished, which becomes the Howard the Duck song at the end of the movie. So the two already have something in common, and they're both musicians. So, they have that in common. Yeah.
Can we talk about Howard's apartment at the beginning and all the duck puns?
The Duck World portion doesn't last very long, but it's just a lot of duck puns. There's a rolling egg as opposed to the Rolling Stone. It's a play duck instead of a playboy. He has lots of movie posters in his apartment. Splash Dance. What a feeling. I forget what the title was, but it's a Raiders of the Lost Ark parody.
It's Breeders of the Lost Ark.
Of course, because, George Lucas, and he produced that movie too. What was the May Nest movie?
Can remember to look at what the title of the movie is, because I'm just trying to think of like what are May Nest's big catchphrases, like fly up and see me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like,
all right, it's May Nest and W.C. Fowles in My Little Chickadee. That would make sense.
So yeah, and then all of the my favorite thing though is that of course it's not specific to the movie, but I love the first pan out when Howard gets transported away from Duck World, and you finally get to see what Duck World looks like as a planet, and it's the egg shape of the planet instead of the spheroid for Earth. The nice little ovoid shape of Duck World is so beautiful on screen.
I'm surprised that they didn't use that for the Universal logo at the beginning of the movie, because this is a Universal movie and the Universal Globe logo at the beginning. Why not have it be Duck World? If that was done today, if Universal made a Howard the Duck movie today, that globe would be Duck World.
Yeah, and if this had been a Disney movie today, it would be like a duck Tinkerbell flying through, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We've talking about Duck World, and the listener already knows where we're going after this. Because if you've seen this movie, you already know. Even if you haven't seen this movie, you know. Well, we had a discussion off mic before we started recording, in that you were convinced this was an R-rated movie.
I was.
This is not an R-rated movie. This is a PG movie, not a PG-13 movie. A PG movie.
I was even confused. I was like, maybe it was only a PG movie because this was before the PG-13 rating, but it's just a couple of years after the PG-13 rating came out. So why is this movie PG? Because
Duck boobs. Woohoo!
why, oh why does this movie have duck tits? Whoa!
Who came up with this idea? Lucas, if I find out this was you.
Well, I haven't read the early runs of Howard the Duck. I will admit that my Marvel comic knowledge does not go back. I have seen some of the syndicated run of the newspaper Howard the Duck, which definitely does not have like, fully frontal nipple bearing duck tits. But like, why are these here? This
Yeah,
makes no sense.
They had to make a costume that an actor had to wear that had duck boobs with nipples on them. Just out that only show up for like 5 seconds in the movie.
No, there are at least two of these because he also decides to read the interview in the play duck, and he unfolds the centerfold, and you see them in there too. It's not just when he's going through being ripped through the apartment building in the chair that we see that. It's in the play duck.
I feel bad because, again, this is a PG movie starring a talking duck. And I feel sorry for any parent who thought this was a kid's movie.
Yeah, because nothing about this movie is for kids. This is a very adult movie all the way through, and adult in both senses of the term. Yes, it's an adult movie in the sense that an older kid or a teen would find the plot kind of interesting-ish, I guess, as much as anybody could find this plot interesting. But this is not really a plot or jokes that are going to be funny to a younger kid audience. And also it's adult in the sense of a lot of the jokes revolve around sexuality or, bodily functions or something,
Yeah, Beverly goes through Howard's wallet and sees a duck-sized condom.
My problem with the condom joke is that there are other things, especially when Tim Robbins pops up later and he's trying to explain, like, well, imagine a world where instead of apes evolving into the dominant species, which is humans, some kind of duck progenitor evolved into, whatever Howard is. And they talk about that in that evolutionary thing, just like an ape-like ancestor of humans lost most of the body fur and, all that kind of other traits and stuff to evolve into a human, the duck progenitor lost the wings and they grew more into fingers, and stuff like that in order to become whatever Howard's duck-like species is. Okay. And so I kind of wonder that the only way that that condom joke really works is if Howard's species also had evolution change the workings of duck reproductive parts, because ducks have corkscrew shaped ones, which is when we're talking about the what if thing that came up again with the what if thing and his human partner in that, and how people were feeling kind of sorry for her. And I was thinking, like, well, if the condom joke works in this movie, then maybe it's saying that there was like an evolutionary change in Howard's species.
Maybe. I don't think they were thinking that far ahead. They just wanted to make a condom joke.
Yeah, but the thing is that then people would be like, well, but maybe whatever changed the male ducks would mean that like female ducks have mammaries now. And no, that would not work. Because it has been confirmed that they are still an egg-laying species.
In both the MCU with Birdie and they even say, Howard even says it. He was hatched. He came from an egg. That's why he doesn't want to eat eggs.
If you come at me talking about the platypus, I will hunt you down and I will find you. End of discussion.
But I said in terms of the adult sexual nature of the movie, there is also the scene where Beverly is wearing the tiniest pair of underwear you can find, and very much flirting with Howard. Oh, maybe the best man you need to have isn't a man at all. And she, yeah. But it's like, this is a very adult joke, a very sexual joke, and this is not for kids. But nobody swears in this movie. And that's why I think it's giving it to the PG rating. There is no human nudity. There is only duck nudity. And that is just a suit. It's a costume. It's a puppet. I guess they could get away with it. We do not see Leah Thompson naked other than in her underwear. There's no blood. There's no gratuitous violence, even though there are fight scenes. So, okay, this can be a PG movie. And like I said, PG movie, if you're a parent and you watch this commercial on TV for a movie called Howard the Duck that features a talking duck rated PG. Oh, this seems like the kind of movie my kids will watch. They watch that wacky duck, Donald and Daffy on TV every week. Yeah, this would be just like that. And I feel so sorry for any parent in 1986 who took their kid to see this movie thinking it was going to be a kid movie about a talking duck.
Okay, speaking of Donald, though, so at one point, Disney threatened to sue Marvel because they said Howard the Duck looked like Donald Duck. And so this was like right when he first appeared in the comics, okay? And Disney was like, you have to redesign this character or we're going to sue you. And so the reason why Howard the Duck always wears pants now is because Disney was like, Donald the Duck doesn't wear pants. Howard the Duck has to wear pants so that people know.
Which is really funny because now both characters are owned by Disney.
Yeah. But what's so funny is that when they made this movie, because like you said, this movie was originally made under Universal before the buyout, Lucasfilm and Universal, one of which is now owned by Disney, and Marvel, which is now owned by Disney. When they decided to do this as a live action with animatronics and puppets, they had to redesign Howard again because they already had what he looked like in 2D, but not what he looked like in 3D as a suit that a human could wear. Well, who's kind of the Mac Daddy of, performers walking around all day in animal suits? So what's so funny is that when they were designing the suit for use in Howard the Duck, they had to go back to Disney again and be like, look, we're gonna make a Howard the Duck movie, and it's gonna be a suit that a human will wear, and we want to make sure that it doesn't look like a human wearing a Donald Duck suit that we stole from the Disney lot. And they were like, yeah, cool, we would not like that either. And so they helped them design it. And we're like, yeah, and remember, it always has to wear pants. Which is why, even in the strip search bit with the cops, you never see Howard without some sort of like pants or underwear on. He's still wearing boxers, is because if they showed him pantsless, it would look too much like Donald Duck.
Plot wise, I mean, there's not much plot here. A bunch of scientists created a scope to look at the gases of the universe and accidentally transport Howard from Duck World to our world. They try to set up the situation to send him back and thus bring in our main villain of the movie, the Dark Overlord of the universe. And I think that's kind of where people can see the movie. Like, yes, Duck walking around, walking and talking, sure. But now you have the quote Dark Overlord of the universe possessing a human, and it's just Jeffrey Jones doing a really, really funny voice and really bad one-liners.
And also, it's not even a really funny voice. It's just like, oh, my voice is kind of raspy and weird.
It really does feel like you were saying before, like we're going to dub over Leah Thompson. It feels like that was just a stand-in, just do a funny voice and we'll dub it over with another actor. And then they just never did.
Or we'll pitch shift it, and then they just never did. The thing about it is that as far as the plot of the movie goes, while towards the beginning of the movie, Howard tells Beverly, like, oh, I've got to figure out how to get home. And so she takes him to the museum because she's like, oh, I know a scientist who turns out to be a janitor. And, they at least try, but because it's just Beverly kind of has a misunderstanding of who Phil is, it really just derails that kind of part of the plot because Phil comes back and he's like, oh, I have some ideas about how you got here. There's like a story about maybe some Aztecs used to worship giant ducks, so maybe you're descended from that and everything. And Howard has to be like, no, you idiot. Like 2 nights ago, I was sitting in my apartment in an easy chair, and then something grabbed me and hurled me through space. Like, I'm not talking about like I was frozen in ice. I wasn't worshipped by Aztecs. I wasn't, like all these things that he throws out. And he was like, no, I literally arrived here like 48 hours ago. Something brought me here. I have to find the something and get back to my planet.
And yeah, he goes through various conspiracy theories about where that he's on some sort of evolutionary bypass or something, and eventually says, "Yeah, I got some friends over at the research facility. I'm going to ask them what they know." And then this is where the scientists come in, and we learn all about the telescope and all that.
Weirdly, that the part where he shows up to be like, oh yeah, I found out about the telescope. I had forgotten how late in the movie that happens because that's like literally like halfway through the movie where the plot decides to join the film already in progress.
Yeah, this is a 2 hour movie, and the plot doesn't really start until an hour into the movie. Like, you could cut literally 45 minutes out of this movie to keep the pacing up, but it's like everything moves so slow, and there's so much of the movie that is just nothing here. Uh, and I get it. You want to have some of those fish out of water moments, like, oh, Howard is stuck on this planet. I need to get a job. Let's do a funny scene where he's trying to find a job. He has to go to the unemployment office, and he's a duck, so they send him up to work at a spa. Isn't that funny?
Except it's not a spa, it's a barely legal love hotel.
It's a brothel, basically. It's a brothel disguised as a spa.
That's kind of what I just said. And 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 actually I had to kind of rewind and go back because I was like, is there actual nudity here? Because there is some blink and you'll not blink and you'll miss it, but there's some blink and you'll wait, did I see what my brain thought it saw, or was that really there, or did my brain insert it?
If the camera was in a different position, yes, you would have seen human nudity, human female nudity. But it's positioned in such a way, and the actors are positioned in such a way that you don't actually see anything. Hence, why this is still a PG-13, PG movie and not an R movie.
This is very much for a very short bit, but this is very much that scene in Austin Powers with the fruit bowl,
Yeah,
where it's just like very creatively, moving melons around so that you don't see her breasts and stuff. It's like that is just like, oh, if that guy's arm was 2 millimeters down, you know, she's not wearing any clothes. So like, yes, technically all of the actors and actresses are covered from the camera's eye line, but also almost all of them are, in actuality, probably on the day nude, you know?
hmm
And I know that if I had been watching this at the age you would take a normal child to see a PG movie, this would have been one of those things that, if my parents had been like, oh, okay, let's just walk into a theater. Yeah, I can see. I don't know why this was not on the list of movies that theaters got barricaded with torches and pitchforks for.
I think the movie bombing helped it.
Yeah, I think if this had been a more popular film, there would have been more like, how dare you trick me into taking my child to see this movie?
Like I said, a few years later, we would get the first Ninja Turtles movie. That was the hit, and it did get blowback. Like, how dare you take this cartoon and make it a violent movie? And I took my kids to this, and the turtles are swearing and stuff like that.
Which is weird because that started out as a comic book for adults, and then it was like, how dare you take that comic book for adults and turn it into a kids cartoon? Like that was like making a cartoon out of RoboCop, which they also did. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, oh, my kid likes that RoboCop cartoon, so I took him to see the RoboCop movie. It's like, yeah, but that movie is not rated G. Like, do your research on that. except it would be like walking into RoboCop and being like, "Oh, this movie was rated G, and look at what I found." Like it's just I don't know. This movie still baffles me. I have no idea how it ended up with a PG rating. And neither of us are prudes is the funny thing. Like, we actually really don't much care. I think it's just that parents should know what they're getting into, you know? Like, I actually really don't think there's anything objectionable for a child to see in this movie. I think it's just that the parents should know ahead of time that you're going to have to be like, sweetie, that's tits on a duck. Don't worry, those don't actually exist, and they would be completely useless if they did. But,
I think that's probably also why this movie was not animated, because there were animated movies for adults around this time, like movies like First the Cat, Heavy Metal. Both of them are R-rated movies, but because they're cartoons, they're, I'm going to take my kid to see this cartoon movie. Even today, you have like your, dare I say it, Sausage Party, which is very much not a child's cartoon, but because it is animated, parents are going to take their kids to see it because cartoon equals kids movie.
yeah, here's the thing is I was literally just as of the day we're recording this, like 4 days ago, I was having my hair done, and in the salon where I was having my hair done were a bunch of women who, when I walked in, were talking about horrible animation that they put out now. It's like you can't let your kids see that kind of stuff. And one of the women in the salon was ranting about like and really vile stuff like that movie that came out a few years ago, Sausage Party. And I mean, I wouldn't let my kid watch that. And I just kind of stopped and said, like, yeah, except that movie wasn't made for kids, and it definitely wasn't marketed for kids. It was a rated R movie, and if you watched a single commercial or a single trailer, or even looked at the poster when it came out, everything about the marketing about that movie was like, this is not for children. It was very clear that it was not a movie for children. They did not want you taking your children to see that film. It was like, look, an adult comedy for adults that happens to be made with CG animation, but is made for adults. And everything about that was, every commercial had bleeped out swear words in it, and all the jokes were like, hey, why don't you come over here and put your hot dog in my bun? And, I mean, it was all very sexually suggestive or bleeped out on the commercial, or people going like, can she say that in an animated film? Well, yes, she can, because it's not for kids. Rated R this Saturday. Like,
Or like the recently Neutered on Netflix. That is an R-rated movie. That is not a movie for kids, but because it is a 2D animated movie, there are people who were letting their kids watch it because cartoons equal kid movies to a lot of people.
yeah, and it was just weird to me because I kind of just looked at the woman, as a fully adult woman sitting in a salon surrounded by other adult women, and they were just all like, and can you believe that they did? And I was like, yeah, I can believe it because it's only a kids movie if you're the type of person who sees anything animated and goes, "Oh, somebody animated that, therefore it must only be for children," even though everything about this movie tells me explicitly it is for adults. Please do not bring your children to see this.
And also Marvel, it happens to Marvel movies. There are people who took their children to see Deadpool because it's a superhero movie. That means it's for kids.
Yeah, I know. I literally sat down on opening night of the first Deadpool film, and right before the lights went down, like a toddler started crying, and someone in the theater went, "Who the hell brought a kid to see this?" Like, just screamed in the theater because the rest of us knew what kind of movie we were there to see, except for apparently like two parents who decided this was a great date night with the child movie. So yeah, this is why I get mad at Howard the Duck, is because like Howard the Duck, I still forget sometimes that this stuff is in there, because Howard the Duck, this version, did not market itself appropriately, in my opinion.
I mean, it goes back to what I said. This is, it's if you're a parent and you don't really know much about the movie other than it's called Howard the Duck and it stars a talking duck and it's PG, then yeah, I'm going to take my kid to see the talking duck movie because it can't be that bad. And then, there's duck boobs and Leah Thompson in very skimpy underwear and a lot of adult humor, but no swearing, but, innuendo. So the whole thing is that the Dark Overlord now wants to use the scope to bring his fellow overlords to Earth to conquer it. And his plan is to take Beverly and infuse one of the other overlords into her because an overlord cannot survive on Earth. Originally, they must grow inside a human body, and Beverly is going to be the first, other than the other scientist, and will be a host body for one of the other overlords. So now Howard and Phil have to race against time to get back to the science facility to stop the evil overlords from taking over the world. There's a very long and honestly unnecessary chase scene involving a makeshift airplane, which looks nice, but in the long run doesn't. It's just 20 minutes of just wasting time. But they finally get there, and then they find this laser from an old expired military contract that the research facility had, and Howard. And again, it looks cool. Howard on this little golf cart with a laser fighting the Dark Overlord. I want to say that the extraction, I guess you can say, of the Overlord from the scientist feels like this was a reshoot decision because they have he's alive. Howard the Overlord is no longer in my body, but he's still here. But like he's such a minuscule part of that finale of the movie. It feels like originally he just died because we never see him with the other two humans. We never see him with Phil and Beverly. He's always off to the side. And then he completely disappears after the Overlord is destroyed. So it always makes me feel like this was some sort of decision in reshoots we need to show that this scientist lived. I don't know if you got that idea or not.
I don't even really think that by the time I get to that part of the film, okay, I hate to say it, but you know how we kind of complained that it took an hour for the plot to show up? I kind of wish the plot had never shown up. Because once the plot shows up, the film gets worse.
Like, I like the design of the Dark Overlord. I really do. Like a very, kind of a scorpion design. I really like it. But you're right in the fact that it doesn't need to be here. Like, you could have just had, I'm from another planet, I'm on this world, and I'm stuck here. And I can't go home. And now I have to live on this world and live among these hairless apes. And what am I going to do?
I think the villain of the film, I don't think we needed the evil overlord, whatever the really thoughtful name they gave to the villain in this movie, was. I don't really think we needed that as a character. I think the villain of this movie could have just been like, I am stuck in Oz and I want to go back home, you know, to call back to last week.
It could have just easily been the scientists, they mention it in the movie, it could have just been the scientists trying to get him to dissect him because, oh wow, we have an alien here, a real life alien.
Or I want to keep you alive and put you in my zoo. Or, hey, the seedy manager of the band that he has to beat up with his quack foo, which we haven't even mentioned. But, yeah, at one point he uses his quack foo to beat up the seedy manager of Beverly's band and get them their money. Maybe that guy decides, like, hey, I'm going to capture Howard the Duck and, you take him on tour and make him the star that makes me way more money than those talentless girl band. You know, any of that would have worked as a better villain than I have a raspy voice and I want to take over your planet. Although it's working really well for the Secretary of Health right now. That just kind of hit me. We're literally living the plot of Howard the Duck, and I do not like it. Okay, moving on from that.
So yeah, that's the end. There is that Howard uses the laser to destroy the scope, stop the overlords, but also he cannot go home. He is stuck on Earth.
Can I point out how really, really stupid this laser is as an invention? Not the one that brings Howard to Earth, although that is also a stupid invention, because nothing about it makes any sense. In fact, you explaining it earlier in this podcast makes more sense than any explanation in the movie. So they make a disintegration ray or something for the military, and then for some reason the military doesn't use it, but it's a thing that's like, yeah, it costs too much or whatever. But
that's literally what Tim Robbins say. His words were, it costs an embarrassingly amount of money to build the prototype, so the military doesn't.
Okay, yeah, if this thing worked at all, the military would have used it. I don't care how expensive it was. And yes, it works, and it works really, really well. The military would have ordered at least 3 dozen of them. The thing is, it's a vehicle mounted weapon. Okay, that's fine. We have those. That I can buy. And then at one point, Howard's like, I can't make the thing go. And Tim Robbins goes, oh, try the seatbelt. Which means, like, the thing won't drive unless you are seatbelted in. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's why the military didn't buy it, because that is the dumbest thing ever when you're on a battlefield.
Yeah.
And then 2, that's a funny joke maybe once, and then they keep using it until the very end, where Howard can just suddenly have the strength to rip the weapon off and use it as a shoulder-mounted weapon. And then we don't need the seatbelt anymore, which, okay, fine.
Well, the seatbelt was only needed to make the vehicle move. It had nothing to do with the gun, which is, again, your point, is a stupid design choice.
Yeah, and I'm like, why is this in this movie? This movie is dumb. I feel like Sigourney Weaver at this point. Like, why is this here? This is dumb. Who put this here? Who designed this? No, my life is going to be ended by this dumb thing that is here, which is weirdly a more Howard the Duck observation than anything in the Howard the Duck film. Sigourney Weaver would be great at Howard the Duck, but sadly not appearing in this film. So, yeah. Then we get back to the more interesting not a plot, which is that, like, now that Howard's stuck on Earth, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to rescue Tim Robbins from being a janitor at a museum or whatever. And they're all going to reform Cherry Bomb. Howard is apparently like a really great songwriter and manager, even though he doesn't know anything about the Earth. Also, did they hold a press conference? It was just like, people of Earth, There is now a walking, talking, sentient duck among us. Please do not freak out. Thank you.
Yeah, his knowledge of managerial is his Duck World job of writing slogans for commercials. It's a blink and you'll miss it thing, but that's what he says. That he wanted to be a musician, it didn't work out. So he got a day job working at an ad firm creating slogans. And he picks up like the bottle of perfume and he says the slogan he wrote for the perfume back home. So it's like that apparently makes him managerial material. I don't know. And then Phil kind of is the techie that works behind the scenes
Being able
at the
to
company.
write ad copy and being able to book bands for, you know, a cross country tour, not the same thing. Just in case anybody needs to know that, not not at all the same thing. That's not how this works. That's not how anything works.
That would definitely be something Howard would say. Like, I'm not a manager. I write slogans for commercials on my planet. How is that going to make me a manager for a rock band? Yeah, I can write a few songs. Yeah, I can play a few instruments, but I can't book venues. I can't negotiate record contracts and airtime and whatnot, you know?
And he's definitely not good as a stagehand
No.
because Tim Robbins is like, "Hey, pull that rope over there." And he's like, "No, not that rope." And I'm like,
Yeah, and yeah, now they're this big famous rock band going on tour, and Beverly and Howard are a thing. And yeah, we did good, Ducky. We did good.
"You got it, Toots."
That's Howard the Duck. That's the movie. Um,
It
yeah,
won
you can see why this.
80 million Razzies, including being nominated for like worst movie of the decade or something. So like,
It is interesting, and this is not the only time this has happened. We've talked about a few of them where this was one person's passion project and it just did not work. Like I said, this was Lucas's passion project. He was a fan of the comics. He wanted to do this movie. And he brought people that he trusted, he worked previously with to make this movie, and they did not understand the comic. So they made it this movie. And it's a 2 hour movie. Probably could cut 45 minutes out of it. Probably cut an hour out of it if you want to cut the Overlord stuff out of it. And it's just.
you could cut the whole movie
It's.
out of it if you know, worked really hard.
I don't know. I mean, there are parts of this movie I do like. There are parts of this that could work. Again, I watched this as a child. I watched this movie as a child on cable. Why? Because my parents were that parent. Oh, it's a movie about a talking duck. This is great for my kid to watch.
Probably the only reason I didn't watch this on cable as a child is probably because it came on HBO and we didn't have that.
But you know, like I said, there are things I can praise this movie for. Like I said, the duck suit, the puppetry, the stop motion of the Dark Overlord is really smooth. The songs are nice. Leah Thompson's singing is really good. It is one of those it's so bad it's good movies, at least for me. It's a good movie to kind of riff on. I would consider it one of my guilty pleasure movies. So like, you know, I can enjoy the mess that this movie is. But then again, you know, I'm the kind of guy that would watch, you know, the live action He-Man movie for fun. So this is one of those movies I'd watch for fun. So yeah, to answer the question, I would say it's magic because yeah, the movie's a mess, but I had fun watching it. So I'll say it has magic. You, Kiki?
I mean, the movie is a mess. I had fun watching half of it, so it's like half magic. Here's the other thing. In the comics, Howard the Duck is capable of magic. He's never learned it, but he has the innate capacity for magic. He has enough capacity for magic that at one point Doctor Strange offered to teach him magic. I just don't think he's ever learned it because he's like, no, that's too much. That's too much weirdness. Like, why do you accept the fact that there's just like dudes that can wave their hands around and make stuff happen? Like that, no. That's not, no.
That would be a hell of, I mean, you could make that movie, a Howard the Duck movie now, where he's just on Earth and now has to navigate through the entire MCU. Like, why is this here? Why does this work? Why is this a thing? Why are you all okay with what's going on right now? Why are you not freaking out? Because I'm freaking out.
Like that dude just like moved his hands in a circle and a portal opened, and instead of you like screaming witch and like throwing things at his head, you pulled out your phone and were like, cool, let's take a selfie. I'll make a TikTok about it. What is wrong with you people? Like,
There is a man climbing a wall with his hands, and you're okay with this. Oh, he just shot string out of his hand. I don't
yeah.
care if it's a mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, Howard the Duck, the older I get and the weirder the world gets, the more Howard the Duck is a vibe. And the more he sounds like Seth Green, the more of a hottie he is. So, like,
Seth Green playing a New York anthropomorphic animal. I do recommend his run with the Ninja Turtle cartoon, since we're going back to that.
yeah, I don't know.
Also, this movie takes place in Cleveland, not New York. The hell?
I will point out that one of the more interesting behind the scenes things to me is that that whole ultralight aircraft sequence was
Mm-hmm.
filmed in Petaluma, California, which means that Howard is in fact a Petaluma duck, which is one for the really obscure riff track jokes. If you know, you know.
All right. So let's move on to next week. The 20th anniversary of this movie is should be next week as of this recording. And we're going to be talking about a movie that is usually played around the holidays, has a lot of subtext around the area of the holiday, and also uh, these characters celebrate Christmas. It's The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yeah, I don't know why Christmas is celebrated in Narnia.
I do, and I hate that I know. You're not gonna like when you find out either.
So come back next week as we talk The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And we'll talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.